Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Luz Takes, but today we have another special guest, another woman in this industry, another black woman in this industry that's actually literally doing her thing. Shout out to BLS. Tell them about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jazz Monet of the Bitches Love Sports podcast. Um, I don't know what else to say. Where do you want me to start? So I,
Um,
I started the Bitches Love Sports podcast years ago. At the
mhm.
time, I had a co-host, and if you want the long story later, let me know and I'll give you the long story. But basically, long story short, we started paying a lot of attention to the Cowboys, and so our audience started to grow to include a lot of Cowboys fans. And that's how we just, at the time, we were doing a lot of, okay, we'll talk about what y'all want to talk about. We'll answer your questions. And that's
Mhm.
how we ended up covering the Cowboys so much. So fast forward, I ended up writing for Inside the Star, which is a Cowboy centric blog. And now I am one of the hosts, one of the rotating hosts of Girls Talk Boys Talk, which is a Cowboys produced podcast. So I think that pretty much covers the
Yeah.
important stuff.
I mean, I had a little icebreaker. You hit half of so what
Okay.
is the source? Like what is the source when you think back? What got you in to the game of football?
Oh man, that is a good question. Um, I think honestly it's really connected to marching band. So in high school, I was a band nerd. My family is a musical family. So I was in marching band in high school and I was in marching band in college. But I never really paid attention to the sport. Like I enjoyed watching it, but I wasn't that much into the details. But I went to Vanderbilt, right? And
Mm.
if you know anything about Vanderbilt, you know, well, they're doing okay this season, but historically, they're not really much of a football school. And so there was some game that we had during like what was really a terrible season where everybody got really excited and they tore down the goalposts and I was like, why is everybody excited about this one game? And some of the other band members were like, well, this is Vanderbilt's first time beating an SEC team in however long,
Mm.
and so that's what really got me interested in because I wasn't even paying attention to conferences.
Ooh.
And so there were a few people in the band who were just very into the sport and very into who was good and who would be drafted and so on and so forth. And that's when I really started paying attention. And honestly, it was after that because Vanderbilt is a much better basketball school than it is a football school.
Mm.
And so it was actually basketball that got me into paying attention to the nitty gritty details of sports in general. But then by the time that following football season rolled around, I'd gotten so used to following our athletes that I was into football as well. And so the cycle just continued from there, where I was just learning more and more and got more and more into it.
Where did the love for the Cowboys come from?
The love for the Cowboys. So I've always been a lover of players. So when my
Mm.
podcast first started, it was all about fangirling and just wanting to normalize fangirling and just being like, it's okay to love a player and not necessarily love a team. It's okay to love multiple teams if you love multiple players. It's okay to like a player because you think they're funny. It's okay to like a player because you think they're cute. Like however you want to fan, you fan, because we had so many women who would like, we talked a lot about roller derby, that was like our expertise. But then when
Mm.
we would all talk about other sports, we had so many women who would talk about how they would go into male dominated spaces and they didn't feel comfortable talking, or if they did say something they felt like their views weren't accepted. And so we created an environment of like, yo, however you want to fan, like that is your fandom, have fun, sports is supposed to be fun. And when the podcast started, the Olympics was happening. And so we covered a lot of Team USA, men's and women's basketball, soccer, gymnastics, all the storylines that were happening around Simone Biles and mental health and things of that nature. And so then my co-host at the time, she's from Spain. She
Mm.
had never watched American football. And we had this conversation on the show where she was like, I don't get it. I look at it and it's just a pile of people. What's happening? And so that summer, the Cowboys were being covered on Hard Knocks. And so we
Mm.
would cover not only sports, but also sports themed content. So I was like, let's watch Hard Knocks, and every week we'll come on the show and talk about it. And we were watching Hard Knocks, and she fell in love with Ezekiel Elliott. She just thought he
Mm.
was the most fascinating creature she had ever seen. And so we went from that. And so, like, she was in love with Ezekiel Elliott, right? And I had kind of watched CD Lamb a little bit from
Mm.
college, but I kind of lost track of him when he hit the pros. And so between those two players, we were like, well, let's watch the Cowboys and we can watch them. And I can help you understand the game of football. Because I grew up in Louisiana. I grew up a Saints fan, but here in the Dallas area, Saints games don't come on TV a lot. And at the time, they were a really hard team to watch, if I'm being honest. Um, so I was like, yeah, we lived in Austin. So I was like, the Cowboys are right down the street. We'll follow the Cowboys. It'll help you understand the game of football, yada, yada, yada. And so not only that, but I had remembered the story of Dak and Zeke from when they first entered the league and how big of a deal their rookie years were. So it was just it felt kind of natural that even though I wasn't a Cowboys fan, there were so many players on the Cowboys who I already liked that it was very easy for me to just follow the team, root for the team, root for the players, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, we started following the team. And then a few of the things that we had to say about the team, especially in response to what the national media was saying, seemed to resonate with Cowboys fans and content creators. And so we just kind of got pulled into the community and started to feel like it was home for us. So that's
Wow,
how that happened.
that's crazy. I like usually it's great to see that somebody has a different perspective and come into this space. Usually, because I'm thinking everybody was they just die hard Cowboy fans from the beginning, but your route, hey, I appreciate it. That's crazy. So yeah, because I'm born and raised in Dallas, and
Oh man,
I so yeah, loving the Cowboys is damn near a religion. So yeah,
it
I've
is for
been
some.
yeah, and I've played football, and I've grown to like football. I can't get away from it. So even past my playing days. So yeah, let's get right into the Cowboys and what's going on. So we played Thursday.
Yes.
Wishy washy thoughts, wishy
Hmm.
washy, feelings from the game. What were your expectations going into the game?
Honestly, my expectations going into the game, I expected the Cowboys to win that game. I
Hmm.
did. I did not expect it to be a super dominant win, not because of how the Cowboys have been performing, but just with it being a short week, with it being that they were traveling on the road, and we had seen some of the struggles that they had dealt with beforehand. I kind of expected that the Giants would pose some challenges. Plus, when you look at what the Giants' tendencies were going into that game, and also some of the things that the Cowboys had struggled with that they historically didn't struggle with, it just seemed like a setup for pretty much how the game was.
Yeah.
I actually was thinking to myself, there's a possibility the Cowboys might not win, even though everybody was like, well, I won't say everybody, but a lot of people were like, it's the Giants. The Cowboys have to win. But I was like, I could imagine a scenario where the Cowboys don't win. But I did believe they would win. I did believe it would feel like somewhat of a fight, and that is kind of how it felt.
Yeah, my expectations were very low. I wanted I was paying attention to how they handle certain situations, not
Hmm.
necessarily the entire picture. I understood like I'm gonna get into it, but I understand where we at as a team. I'm paying attention to the little things. I've tempered my expectations for this team. For instance, like I was hoping that the run game will get like progress. Like McCarthy's play calling would progress. Like
Yeah.
and
I
what
mean,
did
in a
you?
way, the run game did progress a
Yes,
little
yes,
bit.
it did. It
So
mattered. Yeah.
I think people are wanting to see like a very explosive offense, like some of the best moments that fans remember from last season. And since that didn't happen, a lot of people are very disappointed. And honestly, I don't think anybody feels like that's the best the Cowboys can do.
Mhm.
But I do think that until people see that, they're going to kind of, how you said, temper their expectations. So it's like we saw some good things, and maybe this is the optimist in me. Like I feel like the more I interact with people on Twitter, the more I start to feel like, am I an optimist? Am I making excuses? Am I soft on these guys? Because I'll say something, I'll be like, well, this person did such and such good, and somebody will come and be like, man, he was awful, he was terrible, and I'm like, but I mean, he did some good things. I can't say that out loud.
No, no.
But
So
no, like,
who's that person? Who's that person? Go ahead. Let's get into who's that person.
so the person I got in trouble for. And it was actually Stargazer who called me out. She probably was not
Oh my
watching.
god.
We
No,
always
she.
end up like going live at the same time. But Stargazer called me out because I acknowledged that Andrew Booth did some good things. But I see, even you're
Oh
laughing
my
at me.
god.
No, so the thing is, and this is where my fandom comes in, and this is probably the hardest part of what I do now because, like I said, I started this podcast as a fangirl advocating for fangirls, right? And so I enjoyed watching Andrew Booth in the preseason. So now when he does something good, it sticks out to me. And
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, he did some good things. And she's like, he was awful. And I'm like, can I acknowledge that this man, like, I'm not even allowed to go on Twitter and be like, yeah, such and such player did some good things. And he did do some good things. It is a fact. Um, but also with the run game, I'm like, yeah, we saw Rico Dowdle emerging as the running back one, which that is something that a lot of people were talking about was the fact that this whole running back by committee thing did not seem to be the best option for the Cowboys. And so I'm like, okay, we're headed in the right direction there. I'm just like looking at the good. I'm like, these are
Yeah,
good
yeah,
things
yeah,
that they
yeah.
can
Those
build
are.
on.
Hmm.
I'm like, it's a Thursday night game. It's not like they had a lot of time during the week to install a bunch of new stuff. So I'm like, yeah, Rico Dowdle getting a bunch of carries and actually doing something with them. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
good. Progress, right direction. Mozzie Smith showing up. Things are
Yeah,
going in the right direction. And these are the things I'm focused on. I'm like, what's going well? What is something it looks like they can build on to go into this game against the Steelers, which is going to be another tough one. And
yeah.
everybody else is like, yeah, but this sucked, that was terrible, that was awful. What are you talking about? And I'm like, yo, let me let me
So
acknowledge the
yeah.
good here.
So like, let me before like I combat that. When I say I was hoping the situations, I was like, what I mean by that, I'm just hoping we win on first and second down. Like we can get
Uh-huh.
into a third and short. And can we, you know, what does that encompass? That encompass being disciplined, not getting, penalties that kill the drive, get us off schedule. I mean, can we run the ball early downs, get like a 4 to 6 yard gain, you know,
Mhm.
complete passes. We have a bunch of young players on this team. I just
Yes.
want confidence being built slowly and slowly and slowly. Now with you, with this Andrew Booth nonsense.
We do not have
Um,
to talk about
yeah,
Andrew
yeah,
Booth.
I
That was
know.
just my example of
I
me getting
understand what
called out on
you
Twitter.
I understand what you were saying because like he tackled good. Yeah.
Yes,
Period.
he
Like
is a great tackler, and that is my
he
favorite thing about him.
I wish he was heavier and not 6'1", like cornerback weight because you got to cover
Yeah.
too. But yeah, but you were right. Because a lot of people don't want to accept. Like I was never on the Zeke being RB1 train. I'm sorry. He's limited as a back, in my opinion. He can do some good things, but to me, um, being like what I wanted to see from this run game, I was happy I saw, and I was pissed that we didn't see more of it. That's why, like, I have McCarthy, like, me questioning him on this play sheet. I mean, on this, notes, because Rico was good. Like the offensive
Yes.
line was very much blocking well. The thing is, I didn't see McCarthy do any in-game adjustments and see, or it's like he was not in tune with the game, like, and he was kill the momentum, kill the rhythm of the drive. So I was happy to see Rico get some success, even though his vision is still a little wonky. And I was happy to
Mhm.
see. I think I like the idea of Zeke coming in the second half and just beating up on a tired defense. So
Yeah. So the thing about McCarthy that I've noticed when it comes to the run game is it doesn't feel like he really schemes for anybody. So anybody who finds success in that run game is going to look hard. And I think that's one reason why Rico Dowdle deserves even more credit
mhm,
because he's able to take what he's given in that sense and do something with it to where it almost does look like okay, we're getting close to something that's made for him. But it's really in my opinion, and it really looks like him doing a lot. I can't say for himself. There are people blocking for him, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
he's doing more with what he's given than what other running backs right now are doing with what they're being given in the running game, and that's why he's emerging as the running back one. I can't even with confidence say that it's necessarily something that was planned for. And I guess maybe somebody asked that question. I don't know. Like, as you heard when we got on, I was still listening to some of the
mhm,
coaches' sound from today. Um, but I really think that's one of the biggest reasons why he stands out. And I feel like for anyone else to be running back one, and I probably should say that in my opinion, the numbers don't matter. It's
Yeah.
production that matters. And I think for a lot of fans, whoever ends up being deemed running back one is just whoever is the most productive and gets the most carries, right? But for other people to have as impactful of performances, they're going to need something that plays to their strengths. You know, that was one of my biggest issues with how Deuce Vaughn was being used, was that I felt like they really didn't do anything that really played to his strengths per se, you know?
Hmm.
And maybe they're just not in a place for that to work out. I don't know. But for whatever reason, Rico Dowdle has been able to make this work. And I feel like he's doing a great job of that. So props to him. And it just feels like when it comes to the run game, that's just never really been Mike McCarthy's strength in terms of being creative and coming up with a scheme that truly, truly works for who you have in that position. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're right. So this goes to my next question though. Can we trust McCarthy to be capable of improving this offense?
Mm, that's a good question. I mean, right now I don't think we have a choice. I'll say this: in the past, we've seen the offense improve in various ways as the season goes on. Now, there's a good bit of debate as to where that improvement comes from. There are some people who believe that it comes from chemistry between Dak and his weapons. There are some people who believe that it comes from Dak being more comfortable with checking things at the line of scrimmage and making more decisions. There are some people who believe that Mike McCarthy keeps parts of the playbook hidden until later in the season. And there are some people who say as the offensive line gels more, it'll allow for the playbook to be opened up a little bit more. So I do think the offense will improve. I do think we'll see more explosive plays. I do think we'll see them look more cohesive. As far as trusting Mike McCarthy specifically, that
Yeah.
is such a difficult question to answer, considering that you've got an offensive coordinator in Schottenheimer who's separate from the play caller in Mike McCarthy, who's separate from Dak Prescott, who, according to both Shotty and Mike McCarthy, is trusted to take charge of the offense at the line of scrimmage. And then you do also have the issues, like I mentioned, with the offensive line. There's so many variables there,
Yeah.
right? So,
The reason why I asked this question, um, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Like, okay, this is why I asked this question. Yeah,
mhm.
everyone keeps bringing up that we've seen him improve it before, but my thing is him improving it last year was just him doing what he does best. So, like, improving the offense last year was to pass the ball more. I don't trust him this year because I believe the obvious answer to the woes of this offense is the opposite of his philosophy. It's something he doesn't want to do,
Running the ball.
which is running the ball. And because he doesn't, I don't know, he just I don't give him, I'm not giving him any excuses. He's a year into this scheme, especially in the passing scheme, and I'm just seeing what I say, soul power just curls at the line. What
Oh,
is it?
no.
So what, I don't trust his passing scheme, and you have a bunch of young guys. You have two new offensive linemen. I don't know,
Mhm.
people. It's almost half. You know, it's only five of them.
That
Two,
is
two.
almost half.
It's almost half. Like it's very close to half,
And if
and
you consider the importance of the center position, we could just call it half.
it's definitely half. You're 100% correct. And I think in order for them to settle into each game, in order to settle for them to settle to each assignment they have, it's them going at their assignment, not sorting and it just let them sit back and let the defense come to them. I feel like the what I'm basically trying to say is it's I don't trust him because I haven't seen him done it before, like ever in his career.
Mm. Yeah, and people have made that point that some of the issues that the Cowboys are dealing with right now are some of the same issues that were talked about before he left Green Bay. You know, so you could be correct. And that is yet another reason why I tend to lean towards I believe the offense will improve. I don't know if it's that I trust Mike McCarthy. It's
Yeah.
just more so that it's been a pattern over the last couple of seasons that later in the season, the offense will look better. And I don't, at this point, I don't necessarily care who's responsible for it.
Right.
Um, who we decide to give credit to for that might come into play later. But right now, I'm just like, hey, it's if we look at the past seasons, it's going to improve. And hopefully, when it comes to who should be retained, who should get a contract, who's going to be on the coaching staff next season, hopefully the powers that be make the right decision, and that's all I can hope for.
How
Because
much
I'm
of
not going
that?
to sit here
How much of that do
uh,
you play into McCarthy's
into
mindset right now?
how into
Like
how he's
just
playing, into or
mm,
how he's calling the games.
mm, the
Honestly,
pressure.
I think it's easy to imagine that the pressure might play a big role in it, right? That's another theory that's been floating around, that he's being conservative because he wants to be able to explain his decisions whenever he's interviewing for future positions, right? However, I go back to the fact that a lot of the criticism of him right now is the same as a criticism that he was receiving before he left Green Bay. So it's hard for me to buy that. It feels more like a habit of his
Mhm.
or habits of his and just tendencies of his than, oh, I feel pressure in this particular situation and that's why this is happening.
I'm going all over the place, but because
That's fine.
yeah, we gonna be all over the place, but we finna get in the meat and the potatoes. Basically, um, because we deal with a franchise that blur the lines between um what is it, business and roster construction, and like how they, how they deal with the team in contention.
Mhm.
And do you think it's fair, or just how do you feel about this entire situation? Shout out to Aisha Morrison. I got this topic from her.
Okay, so fair in what sense? Is what fair?
Just his overall, like, because right now what I'm seeing, I'm gonna be honest, like they're blurring because we deal with this, this abnormal organization, and we're fans of, like, I don't put it over them that, like, okay, the first 15 plays, that's the most important plays in the offensive scheme, that gives a feel of the game. It
Right.
sets tempo, etc., gives you information. And I just feel like McCarthy, I wouldn't have to put it past him that he has to get the first 15 cleared by Jerry, because he just paid money to,
Mm.
receiver and a quarterback. Like, can we, like, it's just so wild. What if they're to blame for this run game? Not being. I know it's all the way left, but I'm just saying this because now our quarterback, I mean, our head coach is in lame duck season,
Mhm.
and pressure bursts pipes, so it makes diamonds. I'm just seeing McCarthy deteriorate. I'm just seeing him forget things. He's like, so what? What are your thoughts on just, I don't know, just experiencing this?
So you're asking this question based on the assumption that what everybody says about politics and how
Yeah, how
that
they
influences
affect.
gameplay,
Yeah.
we're assuming that's true for the sake of answering this
Mm.
question.
Or do you believe it's
Um,
true?
I do believe it could be. So I'm one of those people who I try not to claim something is true
Mm.
unless there's like actual evidence that it's true. And I do feel like there's a lot of evidence that it's true. I do not blame the people who do operate as though it is true. I don't blame them a single bit. Um, but it's like, to what extent is it true? And it does, like, if we assume that it's true to a great extent, does that then act as a scapegoat or an easy cop out for people who are actually possibly just making poor decisions, you know? And so that's why I hesitate, because I don't want to make excuses for someone who might just not be that great of a play caller,
Yeah.
or just
No.
might not be that great of a decision maker. I like to try to assign blame and assign credit to the right places as often as I can. But assuming that it is true, of course it's not fair. Because what you want to see, and I get it, football, the NFL, it is a business. But what you want to see is an organization where those decisions are made in a synergistic way, where the whole ends up being greater than the sum of its parts, not where one part ends up suffering for the good of another part, you know?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to this idea of politics, if that is true, then what we're talking about is a situation where the performance of the team is literally suffering in order to support the business decisions of people who are supposed to also have the good of the team in mind, right? Because when we get to the bottom of why do fans want to see a separate GM? Usually that's why. They want more voices in the room and someone to argue for what's the good of the team. Because as fans, we want to see the team be successful on the field. And all the stuff that has to do with contracts and who you want to pay and who you don't want to pay and who you want to have a reason for getting rid of. Like, okay, you handle that. We don't need to see the ins and outs of that. And we definitely don't need to see it play out on the field, right? So I would have to say that no, it's not fair. Now, do I think it happens to a certain extent? Yeah, and probably on more teams than just the Cowboys. But it's definitely not a good practice. It's not a good business practice, and it's not a good practice in terms of competition either. So it's one of those things that if that's something they've been relying on for several seasons or for several years, it would be good for them to find another way to go about things. And there are better ways to go about things. We see other teams go about it in better ways all the time.
Yeah, like I only say that because like I used to didn't believe in that either, you know, and I don't really fool with that side of the Cowboys nation, but seeing this offseason has really changed my viewpoint on how insane of an owner slash GM we have. The fact that he was able to wait up to like hours before the game to pay somebody and to pay your receiver 2 or 3 weeks into the preseason, like what it could affect and what it's done if he really truly cared about his team, maybe no dollar amount in the world would be able to like it's just it's we deal with
And I mean, let's be real. It's not
yeah,
like he saved a bunch of money on either of those deals. Like
but
he
yeah.
actually probably would have saved money by making both of those decisions way sooner than he did. And I think that's another thing for a lot of people, right? It's not even like there was a lot of back and forth and he needed to win the negotiations because on paper, if you take the timeline out of it, and just look at it, it looks like he didn't win those negotiations.
Hmm.
Those players got what a lot of people thought they deserved, and they, on paper, based on the dollar amounts that they've been granted, they won those negotiations. So then people start to think, okay, so what was the point? What was the point in waiting this time? What was the point of CeeDee Lamb not being at training camp? What was the point in not making these decisions way sooner so that we can then make other personnel decisions that would benefit the team?
Right.
It's things like that that frustrate people.
Hmm.
So, and I definitely get that. I definitely understand that.
Yeah, and it just I don't know, it's just the hostility, just hostile work environment we got for McCarthy. You're right. I'm not, I'm still mad at McCarthy, but I'm just saying, everything you're doing, like what has Jerry or Steven legitimately done to help improve from the loss on the Packers until this season?
Um, I mean, it depends on your definition of what have they done. Because so if you were to ask them, they would probably point to some personnel decisions that they made. So, like early in the season, a lot of people were praising the changes that were made on the defensive line. I remember coaches saying, "Oh, we've never seen our linebackers happier," and they were happy about adding size to the defensive line. But as we saw a couple of weeks into the season, although those players came with size, they also came with age and wear and tear that may or may not have had an adverse effect on their production and on their performance. So that took what a lot of people initially looked at as a good decision and changed it to what they now look at as a not so great decision. And so people write that off as okay, they did nothing in that area.
Mhm.
Same thing whenever it comes to the running back situation. On paper, you can see how that running back room could be used in a good way, even though it's not like it wouldn't be ranked the highest in terms of what people would think of as the best running backs in the league, right? But you could see how, based on what we did see in terms of strengths, how those running backs could be used in a good way. But then you add that with the running back or the run scheme or lack thereof, and then it once again looks like, okay, nothing was done here either because there was no improvement. So if you ask a lot of fans, they haven't really done anything because the areas in which the Cowboys needed to improve, running the ball and stopping the run,
Mhm.
namely, it almost feels like there hasn't been much improvement. But if you were to ask them, they could name moves that they made. Oh, we did this, we did that. But when you look at, okay, well, what's been the product of those moves? What's come out of those moves? What can the team show for having made those moves? It's like Yeah, it doesn't really feel like much, does it?
It's not even that. It's like, yeah, you got the gift, but it's how you give the gift is just as important. Like, so
True.
you get it late, last minute, half done, just here, you know, don't that's I would say that's narcissistic to expect me to appreciate it, even though like you didn't put as
I
much.
don't think they expect you to appreciate it.
I mean, they sold it as such.
Did they? Did Jerry and Steven actually sell these decisions as things we should be happy about? Or did they allow people in the media to do that for them?
I mean, they cohorts that. That's their whole goal.
I mean, maybe, but what I'm saying is people are like, oh, they sold us this, they sold us that.
Hmm.
It's like, no, I really think in some cases fans are looking for the good. In some cases, fans get like me when I'm watching that Giants game and I'm looking for the good, and I'm like, yeah, this could mean X Y Z. I think in the off season, there are some people who do the same thing with the moves, and they're like, okay, because we went from not having size in a certain position to, okay, now we have size and this could mean this. And we start looking at the potential and we start looking at what could be. And they're like, okay, this could mean this. All right. And then we have this great first game against the Browns. And it's like, oh yeah, yeah. So the moves we made worked. And we all say this after week one. But when we actually go back in time and start looking at quotes and listening to sound, what did Jerry and Steven actually say about those moves? What did they actually say?
Well, he did. I will say this: Jerry and Steven did promise us defensive tackles before the preseason, and him getting Linval and I forget, Jordan Phillips. They got that halfway into preseason. So I would
Yes.
say that is that's not
They said they would get defensive tackles, and they did. But did
but
they
hey,
tell us what we should expect? Did they say fans should be excited?
no, I'm just saying like he said he was preaching it all off season the win, but he lied. You know what I'm saying? Like you said before, because having them before go through a full training camp. I mean, it's different than getting them right before the season starts.
True.
You know what I'm
True.
saying? So
Facts.
like that's what I'm saying. It's like it's almost like I did. He like damn it, I did say that. Here, who's on the market? Them get them two right there. Right, you know what I'm saying? And then it was Rush. Now I understand you're right. But we was just us Cowboys fans. We were just itching for something because we had nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, But
Have you ever heard the term breadcrumbing?
yeah, it was breadcrumbs. Yeah, it was breadcrumbs.
Yeah. That's essentially what the Joneses are doing to the fan base.
And is that right?
No, no, there's no situation where breadcrumbing is good. There's no situation where that's a good thing. But that's what they're doing.
Yeah. What we
I
get
mean,
with
even
it?
if you
Yeah.
look at like everybody is pissed at the Derrick Henry situation, right?
Yeah.
But I mean that's another situation. Just outright, oh well, we couldn't afford it. Lies, lies.
I mean, he wouldn't have done anything with us anyway because we got a stale offense.
That's
But
what some people are saying. That
yeah,
like, yeah, he's better.
yeah, he was just
Like,
yeah.
I,
But yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Okay, so let's switch gears to the defense then. You briefly talked about Andrew Booth. Can you go
We don't
you
have
go
to
into
talk about
you go
Andrew
into
Booth.
somebody else that you were happy what like
You
so
know, you know who I love watching?
Boo.
I love watching DeMarvion Overshown. He is
You and
so
me
much
both.
fun.
You and
He
me
is
both.
so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
And yes, I am fangirling right now. I
Uh,
absolutely am. I'm not about to give you any like great insightful analysis. He is fun to watch. And yeah, I watch the all 22, but what helps me right now also is to watch I don't know if you have NFL Pro, but where they have the clips like split up. And so like
talking
pretty
about
much
the
anything
wide angle and the tight.
um no where I don't know how to describe it, but it's like if you go into the film room, what is happening to my camera? I disappeared. Oh, I see what you're saying. You just pulled it up. No, not that. But it's like if you go into the film room, they have
Mhm.
like each play listed. So
Yeah.
like they have like the all 22 that is just like you can play it straight through, and then they also have another section where it's like each play is listed, and it lists like who's on the field and what they did and what happened.
Mhm.
So pretty much any clip that ends with D dot overshown in parentheses, oh man,
you
that's a good time to
so
watch.
you just filter by when he's on the field or when he's on the he's
No, I mean I'm watching everything, but those are the ones I get really excited about. I'm like, oh, here's another one, because he's gotten, like, I won't say he's gotten, but he's so good at like these solo tackles in open space that are so exciting to watch, just because of the energy and the aggression that he brings to it. And then
Mhm.
he always celebrates afterwards. I love it. He always celebrates. Like there's never a time where he makes a play like that
Mhm.
and doesn't act like it's the first time he ever did it. It's just it's so
Yeah, hold on. I'm
awesome.
cooking up. Keep talking. I'm because I know what you're talking about because I got a couple of his plays. I'm yeah. I
But yeah,
really do appreciate. I wish we can really copy and paste his mindset to this our entire defense because it makes his injury that he had last week even more like hurtful. Of what we've seen, but let me see if I can just load it up. But yeah, just keep talking. Keep talking about Overshown. So you
keep
said you from
talking about Ocean.
it's taking a while to load. Stupid internet, bro. Um, because I'm a Longhorn fan, so I've been following him since like
Okay,
back when he was Agent Zero.
yeah.
When we picked him up, I thought he was gonna be a great. I didn't know. I didn't I honestly say I didn't think he's gonna turn into this fully. Oh my god, it's taking so long. Let me just do this until it
I
get back.
didn't I didn't know what to expect from him, honestly, because by the time I was following the Cowboys that deep, because like I gotta be real, like my me following the Cowboys, it's happened in stages.
Mhm.
And so there was definitely a stage where I barely paid attention to the defense. I'm sorry, but that's just how it happened. I had to work my way into it. Like I never intended to become this, but here we are. But it happened in
Do you notice
stages,
this?
right? Huh? What'd
Is
you
you?
say?
Some,
Oh,
you can see
but
this?
yeah, no, I can't see whatever it is you're trying to pull up. I can't see
It
it.
says Chris Johnson.
Oh.
I was like, oh, do you know him? I'm like, oh,
Oh, on YouTube or on Twitter?
YouTube.
Yeah, I know Chris. Chris
Yeah, he
watches
was
all
saying he
my
was saying
streams.
hey, yeah, he was saying hey.
Oh, I see.
that's,
I see why you said that like that.
that's why I was pulling it up.
Um, yeah, Chris is cool. I don't mind him calling me that. There was somebody who used to come in my chats a lot and call me baby, and I was like, nobody's allowed to call me baby. But I don't know. Wifey feels different. Some I just kind of let it go. Plus, he hasn't been as annoying as that other person, so I just kind of like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just let Chris do what he does. Hi, Chris. Thanks for watching. Um, but yeah, there was definitely a time when I didn't pay attention to the defense, and now I do feel like it's very important to pay attention to the defense for a lot of reasons. But yeah, so by the time I actually started paying attention to the defense and who was on it, I had already missed the train of everybody being excited about Overshown coming to the Cowboys, and then the injury that kept him off the field, right?
Mhm.
So then him coming back off this injury, I was like, okay, this is a great story, but I hadn't really built up expectations in my mind where it seemed like a lot of people had built up expectations in their mind. So I just kind of came into watching him with a fresh set of eyes, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh my God, this is what everybody's so excited about. This man has energy, he has aggression, he has football IQ, he has great timing, he obviously has great technique and strength. Like he is the quintessential defensive player at his position. Like there's very few things that you could ask for outside of what he brings to the table. So I definitely understand the excitement. And like I said,
Yeah,
he's exciting to watch. Because like even if you were to just be like, look at what he brings to the table. Like if you were a fan and you know nothing about how a play is supposed to go, what he's supposed to do, just looking at, like, I literally think about watching him made me think about how I approach my work. Real talk.
okay.
Because it's like,
Mhm.
how often do we just like celebrate every single win throughout the day?
Right.
Like you're a content creator, I'm a content creator, right?
Mhm.
I know you've had days, I've had days where it's like I'm so tired, but I get the content done anyway. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
ugh, that sucked. That was tired. But
Oh yeah.
imagine if after every video you posted it and you were like, that was the shit. I fucking crushed that just because you got it done. Like, Can you imagine
Yes,
like
yes.
what
You
that would
no.
just do to your mental state if like every tweet you put out it was like, that tweet fire, fire. Like don't it doesn't matter who engages with it. You're just like, yeah, everything I say is bomb. Like
No, you're 100% correct. Like well, because Overshown him coming in, I mean, you expect that from somebody who got knocked down to ground zero. You know,
yes,
like
yes.
people don't know the mental gymnastics, the mental, just the work you have to do in order to get back on the field. Yeah, you showing up at the facilities every day, but you going to therapy every day, and that's the thought in the back of your mind that hey, this can be over tomorrow. It can't, maybe it won't heal right. And I just get the sense that he just give off main character energy. He just
Oh
give
yes,
off
100%.
like he values every down, like he values every second of life, and I really do
He
appreciate people
talked
who.
about
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
no,
I
no,
have a
no. Go
thought
ahead. Go ahead. Go
happening.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
don't know if you saw the interview where he talked about maintaining his competitive edge while he was hurt. And he was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I would go into the garage and swat at flies. And I'm like, yes, that is main character energy because it's like, I might not be able to execute my athletic moves properly. I'm not in a place yet to go and compete against another man on the field. But okay, I'm going to take it to these flies in my garage. They going to get the work today. Like, absolutely, that is main character energy. I love him.
Yeah, if I don't know you watch anime, but he reminds me so much of
I love
Luffy.
anime.
Yo, so he reminds me so much of Luffy. Uh, Luffy's just such a likable character, but like how he because giving effort on the field can it can relate because it's not only he doing it for you, but he's doing it for like the brothers next to him. Like
Yeah,
he's going that is contagious what he's
it
doing.
is. It
Very
is.
like
Yes.
so seeing like this it was one play. I don't know if I have it in here, but when he laid out uh like it was a play on the sideline. And I think what's his name? He didn't have no gloves on, but they're running back. Remember, and he got to the edge, but Overshown like ran and just dove. He missed, but the fact is, this man was just like trying his hardest, and I think he got hurt on that play. If I in this game, if I'm being for real, so seeing that from a player, like seeing that from my defense, I'm just looking like, hey, like if I could replicate that on the rest of my team.
Yeah, just the effort, just the enthusiasm and the aggression. I get it. I get it.
Chris Johnson asked, can he do what Michael's doing? No. So think about
No.
Overshown is his size, right? And there's a play I have in here. He got thrown by 78, like when he came out of control, but he got up and he kept fighting. But Micah has a little bit more size than him, you know. And Overshown is already bigger than what he came in. He was a stick when he came. Like he was probably like a buck 50 wet. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so he's already making strides and everything like that. What about
I
Mozzie? Talk
just
about yeah, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
just look at Overshown and Micah as different players. Like I think because they both stand out the way they do, that there are some people who are like,
Like here's the
well,
play. They're the player. You see it? He just dove out. No, I'm
yes,
like,
yes, that one. But yeah, I think there are people who are like, well, Overshown's got energy. He stands out. Surely he can do what Micah does. But like, honestly, I do think it takes a different perspective. And I don't want to use the word mindset because I do think that they both have very much competitors and main character mindsets. But it's just you can tell that the way Overshown looks at opportunities on the field is different from the way that Micah looks at opportunities. I just don't see Overshown necessarily being moved around in the same ways or them being used in the same ways. Now, could Overshown have that same kind of impact in terms of having an impact on the defense, the same way Micah talked about being on the impact wave and just, being such a force that he creates opportunities for other players, or he becomes somebody that opposing coordinators kind of like try to look out for? I don't think he would have the same amount of impact as Micah, but I do think he could have impact in that sense to where he becomes somebody that people watch out for.
mhm,
Absolutely. Now, Mozzie,
mhm.
I'm really happy that he showed up on Thursday, because like I kind of felt bad because I don't know if multiple people posted this clip from NFL Live, but I definitely posted the clip where Marcus Spears said he needed to stop getting his ass whipped on the interior,
Yeah.
but part of the reason I posted it and didn't think much of it was because I also used to play a competitive contact sport, and I'm also used to talking to and about my teammates that way. And so I thought it would stand out because of the language. I didn't expect so many people to look at it as a shot at Mozzie. I looked at it as Marcus Spears calling Mozzie out. Like, because here's a great example.
Hmm.
There are some players I call out not because I don't like them, but because I believe in their ability to do better. And if
Right,
I didn't believe they could do better, I wouldn't spend so much time watching them.
right.
I wouldn't waste my time analyzing their play, looking for ways that they could do better and trying to predict ways that they would do better, because I just be like, well, they're just not, they need to be replaced, would be my mindset, right?
Mhm.
So that's how I looked at what Marcus Spears said about Mozzie. And so when so many people started reacting in various ways and calling him a bust, I did kind of feel bad about it. And it didn't go as viral, but the next day after the game, you know, I tweeted at Marcus Spears again. I was like, yo, do you think he deserves another mention for doing well? And Marcus Spears tweeted back and he was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I watched the film and he did good last night. And I was like, there we go. And I retweeted it, but I guess people just weren't as excited about that as Marcus Spears saying ass. Um, but no, I'm really glad that he showed up. And yes, it was one game, but the same way that I looked at other players and I was like, these are things that he can build on, this is that game was a step in the right direction. I'm like,
Mhm.
we saw him just like completely resetting the line of scrimmage, you know,
Yes.
and just changing the way that you could tell he changed the way that the play was supposed to run in some
Mhm.
cases. Like you could see running backs being like looking one way and then being like, okay, that's out of the question. I'm going somewhere else. Um, and so it's one of those things like, okay, now we know you have it in you. Now people have seen that you have it in you, so keep bringing it out. Like, don't let that be like a one time thing and people think that you got to get cussed out on national TV every week in order for you to show up. Like,
Hmm.
you have it. So keep bringing it to the table.
Yeah. If I'm the coach, if I was coaching Mozzie, I would literally take this film and keep it in the hard drive locked up. Cause so when he messes up again, there's no excuse. He's like you're more than able, Mozzie. Like you're defeating the one-on-one blocks, you're taking on double teams. Everything that was taught in those videos we were seeing in the preseason and the in camp, how you was not you weren't dragging your feet here, you was picking up your feet here, and you were looking different. I seen you suplex a damn running back. Like I seen them like, and Chris Johnson is right. I can't wait until you get in your man body when you get stronger. You know what I'm saying? You get in your grown man strength. Like you can really change this. You can do this. Sometimes you gotta see the victory. You gotta see yourself do it. And
Yes.
like,
And there were some plays where I wondered if he put everybody else out of his mind. And here's why I say that. A lot of times when you see the defensive line going against the offensive line, you see a lot of times them kind of staying in the same vicinity of one another. In this game, I saw Mozzie just pushing dudes, almost like the only thing in his mind was, I'm
I'm finna
about to
whoop you.
push you backwards.
I'm finna whoop you. I'm finna move you
Yeah.
against your will. That's
Almost
what I
like
was
he,
saying.
he
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about who was next to him and what they were doing or what he needed to do with them or for them. He was like, I'm coming at this dude. And in a lot of cases, it was, what's his name, Schmitz on the Giants. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm coming at this dude. And what I'm going to do on this play is push this dude. And I'm going to keep pushing him until that whistle blows. And it made me think of, so remember how earlier I said I became interested in sports at Vanderbilt? I've
Hmm.
always been more interested in players than in the actual game. And it made me think of at one point I was friends with a few of the guys on Vanderbilt's basketball team, and there was this guy who had been recruited to Vanderbilt who was a big deal, but he was struggling very early in the season. And then all of a sudden he had this breakout game. And I was talking to him and I was like, what do you think made the difference? Because you look like a completely different player out there. And he said to me, he said, before that game, I had been so worried about what play was called and what I was supposed to do and what was the right thing. And then I went and talked to the coach about it, and coach said, yo, sometimes you just got to go out there and play ball. And he was like, and that's what I did, and that's what I'm good at. And so I was just able to do that better. And so now sometimes whenever I see players have these breakout games, I kind of look for like a sign of like, okay, Is this the game where they just like, okay, I'm just out here to play ball. I'm not worried about, like, yes, I know I have a responsibility to my teammates and there are people behind me who are depending on what I do, but I really can't think about that right now. Right now, I got to think about pushing this dude in front of me, and that's what I'm going to do. And sometimes, and not
Mhm.
saying that's where you stay, sometimes that's just the foundation to get to the point where it's like, okay, now that I've gotten really good at being like, okay, I can confidently and repeatedly and on a regular basis do that. Now I can go back to what worrying about the people around me, because now this is second nature. Now I have room in my mind for all the people around me, you know. And so there's part of me that wonders if that's maybe what happened with Mozzie.
And maybe that's what's happening with all these rookies. These rookies, this is a new scheme. They're in the NFL. They're adjusting to the speed, and they just don't. When you find out the why on why you're
Hmm.
running a play, like that, if one, you understand the playbook faster because you understand now when the coach called a play, like I'm thinking what he thinking, and also it allows you to play free, you know. And when you're playing free, you're not thinking. You can play fast. You can it's simple. So I saw a free Mozzie out there.
Yes,
I
yes.
saw I saw a Mozzie that that maybe he watched Lose Tape because I said it, man. Just go out there, like just take the man's wheel, like just refuse to be moved. Just he put on his pants the same way you do. He don't he bleeds just like you do. So like there's nothing to be afraid of. Your mind, this is a message to everybody. Your mind is very powerful, man. I'm telling you.
A
And when
hundred
you get
percent.
over that, there's no limit to what you can do. And that's why I think with Mozzie, like when Mozzie, he's coming in, he's hearing everything. He's in social media. He's hearing all like his name is trending in the Cowboys, media. We're just worried. We call him a bust. Sometimes, you just gotta.
And
That's why
not only
LeBron.
that, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes people downplay what he's been through physically. Like losing as much weight as he lost and then having to basically regain it all back, that is a lot of stress on your body. And like if you've never done a correct body recomp, like, and I say correct because there are some people who will say they went on a diet and they kind of half-ass the diet and then they get off the
Hmm.
diet, and so they don't know what it's like to lose a lot of weight and then try to gain it back, especially trying to gain it back the right way. That is stressful. And then on top of that, he's dealt with an injury, you know? So
The
not
back
only
injury.
has he
Yeah.
had to deal with everything that you just mentioned from a mental standpoint, he's dealt with a lot physically that could very well impact his performance.
Yeah. So um I'm hoping, we can build up on this because we did lose a lot of people this off season. Briefly, I know we're heading to the end. What position do you think we should make a priority to improve?
Um, I think right now everybody's looking at defensive end for obvious reasons. It's kind of like, what is the defense going to look like
Mhm.
without both Micah Parsons and D Law? Like
Right.
to lose both of them at the same time is bananas. It is.
It
It's just
is
like, how does this even happen?
one in a
Um,
million. Yeah.
so it's hard to put anything above that right now, honestly.
Defensive end. Yeah, I mean, if we can get somebody who can do both,
I think
you
before
know,
that, a lot of people were on the DT train, and then other than that, people were talking about running back. But yeah.
I heard about the news of Amari Cooper and them restructuring. How serious do you think that is?
It's hard to say. His low price tag right now is one of the things that's making a lot of people think the Joneses might reconsider and let bygones be bygones. Because like there's nothing that's Jerry Jones bait like a low price tag. You know what I'm saying? And so I think before that there were a lot of people who kind of believed that too much had happened from an interpersonal standpoint to seriously consider Amari Cooper coming back, but that low price tag might do it. And so from there, it's kind of what we talked about at the beginning, politics. How does Amari Cooper fit in a room with CeeDee Lamb as wide receiver one? Because last time they were in a wide receiver room together, that wasn't the relationship.
Right.
Cooper was the one, and CeeDee Lamb was, still learning, like getting his feet wet in the league, right? Now there would be a very different dynamic. And as much as CD Lamb talks about how, he and Amari Cooper still have a good relationship, how does that relationship change? How does it work when they're both now used to being wide receiver one and now they're back in the same room where one of those people has had tense relationships with the ownership anyway, you know? So
Yeah.
on paper, does it look like a good move? Absolutely. But how it might play out, especially considering everything we talked about in terms of politics and how business impacts or allegedly impacts playtime, that is a whole separate conversation, you know. So,
Yeah, I mean, my trust in this front office, we will see. Um, I
yeah,
think, yeah, they owe us a couple of moves, honestly. Defensive end, D tackle, however they want to go. I know, I see people in the chat. Yeah, I'm interested to see how this defense is going to look, minus the Michael Parsons effect, minus the,
I'm not anxious to see it. I wish we didn't have to see
yeah, I know, I
it.
know, but I'm trying to be glass half empty. I'm trying to, because we got a big game coming up. We got a big stretch coming up. I wish
Yes,
we'd have, if it was a different type of schedule, this would be fine. But what we have coming up, oh man, the timing of it is poorly. But I got to stay grounded with my team. Um,
it's
yeah,
gonna be a test, and it's so crazy because it feels like a few weeks ago people looked at the Steelers like, oh, they don't even have a quarterback. And Justin Fields has settled into that position so well. Like I think better than anybody who I know predicted. It's like just looking at his stats and actually like I haven't watched a ton of film on him, but what I have watched, I'm just like, this is the same kid. This is the same kid
right,
they kicked out of Chicago. Like he looks so comfortable in the pocket now, and the chemistry he has with those receivers is gonna make for a real challenge for our defense because they're already so good at finding voids in the coverage, which is like it's crazy to say almost that Justin Fields is good at finding voids in the coverage. Um, but that's how they've been hurting teams.
hmm
And just seeing kind of what they do visually on the offensive side that kind of creates those voids, I'm just like this could pose a real challenge for the Cowboys defense.
yeah, but I'm confident. Um, I should have been. I know I'm slipping, y'all, but because we had a Thursday game, I should have already been watching film. It's been a long day at work.
Oh, I don't blame you for not.
Yeah,
I'm like
but
it's a mini buy for us too. Like I
yeah,
took some time
yeah,
off over the weekend too.
hmm yeah. So yeah, this is great. Shout out to everyone. Make sure if you're here, subscribe to BLS. Subscribe to Lose Takes. Maybe we can do this again. But hey, shout out to everyone who's in the chat though. Go Cowboys. Any last words?
No, but definitely I would love to do it again. Just let me know. Hit me up.
There you go. Hey, Cowboys Nation has been my time. Until next time.